Our story begins in 1998. Oasis were the biggest band in the world and were nearing the end of their colossal tour in support of their newest album at the time, Be Here Now, which ran from June of 1997 to March of 1998. While everything may have seemed high energy and smooth sailing for Oasis on the outside, internally things weren't as good. The reception to Be Here Now, while at first was showered with unanimous praise from both critics and fans alike, quickly turned negative as the tour went on. When Be Here Now released, you would see quotes from the British press like truly amazing praise. To find an album that had attracted gushing notices in such profusion, one had to go back 30 years to the release of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. As well, labeling it as a veritable rock and roll monsoon of an album, a giant jigsaw puzzle, an elemental force, a monster that cannot and will not be contained. But as time went on, people started calling the album overproduced, bloated, and one of the most agonizing listening experiences in pop music.
It's just something you can tell your grandchildren, isn't it? I mean, the biggest album of all time. Yeah. I mean, I was there first.
I've only heard the first few tracks, but from what I hear, it's going to be wicked, much better than the first two albums.
It's the best one yet. I think it's the best album of this year, and I don't even think Oasis will do any better than this ever. It's that good.
No, I don't like the album.
Why don't you like the album?
It's just the same old stuff. It's like, you know, guitar rock, dad rock, all the same.
It's the sound of a bunch of guys on coke in the studio, not giving a fuck. There's no bass to it at all. I don't know what happened to that. It's all... And all the songs are really long, and all the lyrics are shit. And for every millisecond Liam is not saying a word, there's a fucking guitar riff in there, in a Wayne's World style, you know.
At that time, we thought it was fucking great, and I still think it's great. It just wasn't Morning Glory, and I'm sick of these people going on about definitely maybe, fuck definitely maybe. It's over, you know. Fuck Morning Glory, it's over.
People will bitch about it for the rest of their lives, you know. But, you know, fucking sell it. You get £4 or £5 for it, I would imagine. Come round my house, I'll sign it for you. Probably get a tenner then.
However, this backlash didn't translate to the stage, as thousands of fans attended the Be Here Now tour and was the band's peak as performing artists, featuring an incredible stage design and their signature huge wall of sound. There were some hiccups during the tour, however, like the band causing problems on a plane to Australia, where the airline demanded them to behave well before letting them back onto their airline. As well, Liam getting arrested in Australia for headbutting a fan who took a picture of him, and subsequently the next night having a disastrous show in Brisbane where Liam's voice was acting up and the overall sound was horrible.
The bad boys of rock continue to live up to their name. Oasis has flown into Australia straight into controversy. Brothers Liam and Noel Gallagher accused of harassing staff and passengers on their flight into Perth. The airline is threatening to ban the group. Federal police have been asked to investigate.
300 screaming fans waiting for one British rock group with a growing reputation as rat bands.
I meet that captain again with his top off on the plane. See that? I got sat in there.
Oasis arrived in Perth last night at the start of their Australian tour, ignoring adoring fans with a trademark contempt. While their egos would fit into a truck, Taragos took them away. But today they couldn't escape claims of shocking behaviour on the flight from Hong Kong to Perth.
It was like a flight from hell.
Passengers from the Cathay Pacific flight say the band's behaviour was dangerous, forcing the captain to intervene.
They were throwing things at passengers, they were abusive, they were disgusting towards the air crew.
As the band members played tourists at Rottnest, lead singer Liam Gallagher couldn't resist having his say about the flight.
I don't give a flying what comes in it, because I'll tell you kids, I'd rather walk.
Which is just what the band might be doing, because Cathay Pacific is demanding a good behaviour guarantee before allowing the band back on board. That prompted this threat to the Cathay Pacific captain.
And he told me to shut my mouth and carry on. I'm like, this is fine, you don't like that.
Who told you to shut your mouth?
Some panhead who wants to stab him with a pickaxe.
That's enough, lads.
All of this came to a head towards the end of the Be Here Now tour, with an exhausting world tour schedule, the band's cocaine usage riding high, behavioral problems, and the negative reception to their highly anticipated third album. Oasis were tired. They were fatigued and just bored. After the last show of the tour, there were no celebrations, no conversations, or any drunken behavior. Just the biggest band in the world, slowly ebbing away from the lofty peaks of superstardom. After the tour wrapped, and Oasis, Britpop, and British music culture in general started to move on to the next thing, lead guitarist and songwriter Noel Gallagher continued to take large amounts of cocaine. Speaking to comedian Matt Morgan on his Funny How podcast, Noel Gallagher said there was a period of time where he was taking cocaine every night, and that he went to hospital while in Detroit, Michigan after becoming ill. Because of the prolonged use of cocaine, he would have many drug-induced panic attacks and often felt lonely and paranoid. He even feared that he would have heart attacks and thought he was going to die. After many panic attacks and paranoia, he decided enough was enough. I believe this is when the seed for gas panic was planted. Noel recalls the exact moment he decided to stop taking cocaine. I remember it vividly. It was the day that I quit cocaine. It was during the World Cup, France '98. France were playing Germany, and it was halftime, and we had a huge party the night before, and I'd kind of stumbled out of bed in the afternoon. The first thing I did was went to the fridge and got a can of Red Stripe, I was smoking at the time, and lit a cig. My whole world just fell in. I just had a freak out and I couldn't breathe and all that kind of thing. From that day forward, I quit. This isn't the first time that Gallagher has spoken out about how he got off drugs. In the same interview, he was asked if he misses being on drugs, to which he responded, "No, I do not. I've had a few really brutal, aggressive panic attacks, which is why I quit. If you've been up there 3 nights doing loads of gear, meaning drugs, you're not talking yourself down off any ledge there, mate. You think you're going to die, right? And rock stars die of that. So it's like, this is it. I'm on the way out. A couple of times I thought, am I going to have a heart attack, you know what I mean? Luckily, I didn't. I'd had enough of drugs. I think at the time I was thinking that I'm going to give up drugs for 6 months and see what happens. I wasn't planning on such a major lifestyle change, but after about 2 weeks I was like, I much prefer this, much prefer it. After Noel Gallagher decided to kick the drugs and live a healthier, calmer life, he would begin to write and demo new songs, but this time without the cocaine, drug-filled arena anthems formula that he would have previously leaned on, instead of focusing on a new, more experimental direction that was subdued and ultimately a more heavy psychedelic rock sound. These demos had titles that were far stranger than previous songs, like Cigarettes in Hell, Let's All Make Believe, and of course, Gas Panic. When speaking to GuitarPlayer.com magazine in the year 2000, Noel Gallagher said, "The thing about standing on the shoulder of giants is that I had a full year to sit in my 16-track bedroom studio with an engineer friend and make demos, whereas the demo sessions for Be Here Now were finished in 2 weeks, and they were really rough. We didn't bother about what sounds we were going to use, or the arrangements, or anything. I thought, we'll work all that out when we get into the studio. This time, however, I had basically done the album twice before it even got to the band. I had written and recorded the songs on a little Walkman, and then demoed the tracks on 80ATs in my bedroom. And we ended up using a lot of stuff from the demos on the actual record because the demos were that good." The band would reconvene in April of 1999 to record what would become their 4th studio album, Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. The approach to recording this album would be unlike the previous 3 albums, however, in regards to the equipment being used and the sounds chosen, as well as some new in-studio rules like Noel Gallagher imposing a no drugs and alcohol ban while in the studio. This would go on to influence Paul Arthurs, also known as Bonehead, and bassist Paul McGugan, also known as Guigsy, to leave the band, who would be replaced by guitarist Gem Archer and bassist Andy Bell. The new album would be recorded and ultimately released in February of 2000. The album as a whole was a big departure from the massive distorted guitar wall of sound that you would have expected. while Be Here Now was the drug-fueled party that ran throughout the night. Standing on the Shoulder of Giants is the hangover the morning after all the noise has died down. Gone are the massive distorted wall of guitars, and in comes a more electronica, psychedelic edge with more emotional and intensely introspective lyrics. Go Let It Out, the lead single, introduces a mellotron and is heavily Beatles influenced. Who Feels Love includes backwards guitars and more Indian-inspired percussion. Where Did It All Go Wrong asks that very question and is no doubt about the band's fall from fame. Roll It Over, one of the best closing tracks to an Oasis album with its mid-tempo, melancholic lyrics. But the song that captures the entire feel of Standing on the Shoulders of Giants, and in my opinion their magnum opus of their discography, is Gas Panic. Gas Panic is the definitive indicator of where the band were sonically, with, in my opinion, the best lyrics and the most introspective of their entire discography. It details perfectly what was going through Noel Gallagher's mind and where he was during his darkest days of drug use and panic attacks. Let's analyze. The following is my interpretation of the lyrics and song. If you have a different interpretation of what the song is about, please let me know in the comments. The song starts with this almost hypnotic drum loop. An acoustic guitar enters, followed by the first lyric, which catches you by surprise. In this case, the lyrics refer to Noel wondering what this feeling is from the drugs, hence the sin, and that doesn't have a voice, creeping through his mind, building up slowly. Sailing on the sea, sweat on a stormy night. This refers to a depressing atmosphere and the sweat beginning to form on you as the panic attack sets in. I think he don't got a name, but I can't be certain. And in me he starts to confide. This next lyric could mean Noel has no idea what's happening or why it's happening, but that he can feel paranoia and dread bubbling beneath the surface. Then the chorus. That my family don't seem so familiar, and my enemies all know my name. And if you hear me tap on your window, you better get on your knees and pray. Panic is on the way. To me, this clearly describes the paranoia that Noel felt during this time. This sense of fear that everyone knows your name, even people you don't want to know, where you live, and that you'll crumble in fear. Immediately after the first chorus ends, the instrumentation slowly builds with more sounds as the panic attack is gaining momentum and getting worse, until the second verse comes in and now the attack is in full swing. My pulse from sodomy to the ghost dancer. My eyes are dead and my thoughts like a black hole. And if there's a God, give another chance. And now I'm to sing for a song. To me, this details the exact feelings Noel was experiencing during the height of the attacks, describing how his heart is racing, not being able to see very well, praying to God, like in the chorus about getting on your knees and praying, and that you'll make it through, hoping you won't die. The rest of the song repeats the chorus 2 more times with an incredible instrumentation and one of the best Liam Gallagher vocals, I think, in the entire Oasis discography. And it's full of intense drumming from Alan White and excellent production from Spike Stent, with these swooshing textures that come in and out in a pulse, sounding almost like a jet engine moving forwards and backwards. But finally, towards the last minute of the song, the intensity slowly begins to die down, signifying the come down of the panic attack, and what almost seems like a breathe in, breathe out with the aforementioned jet engine sounds. The song ends with a flute playing a triad of notes as the song fades and everything returns to normal. This song is the perfect encapsulation of what having a panic attack feels like, both in its instrumentation and the lyrics. As well, the new direction for Oasis sound, their evolution as a band, and Noel Gallagher himself. He expertly crafted his experiences into some of the most honest and emotional lyrics that he's ever written, and why, in my opinion, makes Gas Panic the best song Oasis have ever written.